Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you my walkthrough of creating a mockup. So the first thing I do is I name my page Mockup. I bring in a artboard, pre-configured artboard for iPhone, and then I decided to do a background. So I created another page for my pattern, in which I do an artboard that's about 100 by 100 pixels. Actually, it is 100 pixels. And then I create another artboard for my color scheme, because it's easier for me to keep track of colors when it's just separately, and I just like copy and paste the color in, or use the ink dropper, I should say, which is a lot faster than typing in the actual hex code. So I decided to go ahead and create my heart, and all it is basically two circles and a triangle. So with the triangle, what I do is I add some points on the vector line, and then just round it off. I choose a round edge for the point, and try to make it as even as possible so that it creates a heart. If you could tell, it's an upside down heart right now. And I'm just tweaking it to get it to how I want it to look like. Again, flipping it, I will flip it in a minute, just to get to look like an actual heart. So I'm just kind of showing you that you can create, really simple shapes or complex shapes using simple ones. So here I'm just changing everything to the gray and then doing a union on all the shapes so they join together, then making the border a little thicker, more kawaii looking. And then I'm going to paste it back into my smaller artboard, because I found doing it in smaller artboard is creating a lot of pixelation, and I can't stand it. So that's why I did it on the big one, and I remove it from my bigger artboard. And then I go ahead and notice something really odd going on with the border. So I'm kind of making sure that I get the size just right. I haven't found like a perfect way to do perfect corners, so forgive me. So now I'm just kind of making sure that the color's the way I want it, and then the position of the image is the way I want it. And the way to do this, or to actually make it a pattern, I actually have to save it as a file. So here I'm trying to find file. I just upgraded to the new sketch, so here it is. And I just save it as a pattern in my folder that I create here. So here, just saving it, and then I'm going to go back to my mockup, create a background overlay, or background square, just another rectangle that is the same size as my artboard. And then I'm going to fill it with the pattern. So you go into fill for the rectangle, and select the pattern option. And then from there, you can add your image to should make up the pattern. And there it is. So it is actually fill image and not tiled. So I'll go ahead and change it to tiled here in a minute. I was just trying to get used to the setup. It's a little different. So here I'm adjusting the size, and you can adjust the size to smaller or larger depending on how you want the pattern to look. Which is actually quite interesting. So you're actually seeing me learn how to create a pattern. But again, this is not a tutorial at all. I'm just kind of showing you how I do my process for creating a mockup for my app. And these mockups, and the reason why I'm spending so much time, trying to figure out how I want it to look like, is because once I get figured out, I can easily export these images, these assets, directly to my app. So the more time I spend on making sure the size is just right and getting it to how I want it to look, it's really easy from there just to export it immediately to make any changes that I want. So from here, since I've got the background the way I want it to look, I'm actually making sure that it's perfect. because that's the thing, like I said, you can always change the background image, you can change the color. Here I decided that I didn't really like the turquoise, that was a little too loud, so I decided to go with the light blue, because it is really nice and light on the eyes. You don't want it too confusing too, because the app, I mean, yeah, the hearts are adorable, but sometimes the colors, if they conflict too much, it might cause a problem with readability. So here I'm just changing the pattern background to blue. So there we go. It's that easy. Once you get the pattern down, that's about it. So now I'm naming my rectangle background, because I do this because, again, I'm going to be using this as the actual background to the app. I do plan on exporting it, and so I'm giving it a name that I can recognize, and that'll make it easier. So from here, what I'm going to do is actually do the assets for the score and for the time, as well as the buttons. So basically, again, everything is a really simple shape. In this case, I'm just going to use a rounded rectangle. And because a round rectangle is so uniform, I'm going to kind of mess with, again, the vectors, adding vector points to make it more like comic or, manga, kind of to keep the style the same. So I don't want it to be overly uniform. Circles are fine, but when you deal with rectangles, it's like, okay, it's a little too much, a little too harsh. So here I'm just messing with the points, and the great thing about Sketch is you can choose how you want your points to behave. Like, do you want them round or square? Do you want them to have their handles connected or disjointed, which is really awesome that you can do that. And it's not nearly as confusing as Adobe, in my opinion. I do know how to work in Adobe, but for app making and for, assets that you plan on exporting that's just digital, Sketch is the way to go. So again, I'm renaming my color scheme artboard to color scheme artboard. So here, this is how I kind of keep track of the colors I use. I use just an artboard that has the circles with the colors, because it just makes it a lot easier for me, again, to just keep track of the colors I'm using or want to use. And when I need to change colors, it's easier to use InkDrover than to do anything like that. So here I'm positioning where I want the labels to be and look like. I'm using just plain text, but technically that will be turned into labels when it goes into Xcode. So I decided to change my mind on the pattern and do polka dots instead. So this is how you do polka dots, just circles, and then making sure that the circles on the corners are quartered, and boom, polka dots. And to kind of soften the polka dots up, I did another square rectangle, did an overlay to kind of soften it up again. And see, you can do a lot of different things and, make it to how you want it to look, adjusting the gradient on my overlay. And so here I'm going to create a character. I'm bringing in some character faces that I created for another project. I just copied them in, and as well as some color schemes from that project that I did. And so again, I'm going to create a really simple character using a couple circles and more circles. And I did the border on there to kind of see where I'm placing them. And then I'm doing like the cupcake holder, I guess you would want to say, the actual cupcake portion. Again, just using simple shapes, 2 circles and a polygon. And I do a union on that. And I decided that I wanted to do like a scallop edge on the actual shape. So I created my round vector and did a subtraction, and that created that nice intricate shape. And then I decided I wanted some sprinkles on my cupcake, because cupcakes, they have to have sprinkles on them. So my process is, what I do is I typically just create a bunch of circles or a bunch of ovals, And then I drag on a face that I'd already created. So makes it really easy. And then the positioning, putting things in front and behind, is really fun and easy to do. And then grouping, so you can move things all at once, which is what I did with my sprinkles, because they're all technically all circles. And then I just select all of the objects in there and just created the cupcake. And then what I do is I create a vector to actually do the outline. So I just do actually straight vectors, and then I go in and add points to round everything off, because it's just easier to do that, because you focus really on the detail instead of just getting it done. And then you get the width of the border that you want it to be, and then I just tighten it up to make sure it looks perfect. And there we go, there's my cupcake. And so I actually resize the artboard that the cupcake is on, so that I can export it really easy, and there it is. So I create an image out of it, and then I can make my app look how I really want it to look. And so hopefully this has helped you out, kind of seeing my process. It is a process to get the colors that you want, and to get the feel that you want. But the thing is, it's really easy and fun to do it in Sketch. Not that I'm selling their stuff or that I'm sponsored by them, even though I would like to be. But it is really super fun and easy to do to be creative. It is a little different than Adobe Illustrator for sure. So there's how I create a mockup. This is, again, just the main view mockup. And again, I'm not the authority on this. I just have copied and learned from many different sources on how to do this. Again, Sketch is an amazing program to work with. And again, this isn't meant to be a tutorial, but let me know if you would like a tutorial on it. There are plenty awesome tutorials out there on Sketch. But this is what I used to create the app. And again, if this has helped you at all, give this video a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And I'll also link any references that I used to create this down below in the description box. Alright friends, keep calm and design on.